I flew to London because I think Samsung is preparing for Apple's biggest product launch in years. That's right, the iPhone Fold, a device expected to be unveiled this September. But here's what caught my attention. At Galaxy Unpacked, Samsung revealed the Galaxy Z Fold8, a phone that's shape is totally different compared to the Folds that came before it. In fact, months before this, in March 2026, reliable leaker on leaks in collaboration with Android Headlines published one of the first CAD renders revealing Samsung's completely redesigned, wider, passport-style Fold. But here's what caught my attention. Apple's first foldable had already been leaking publicly for well over a year, with analysts consistently describing a remarkably similar direction, a wider passport-style foldable. And so as I traveled through London trying to understand what this phone is all about, the one question that kept running through my head was the Galaxy Z Fold8 a reaction to what Apple is about to release? Or is this the result of years of engineering, research, and testing that simply happened to arrive at the perfect time? Listen, as it turns out, I wasn't alone, okay? Before even getting our hands on this new device, a lot of us wondered if this design was a reaction to the upcoming Apple Fold, because the reality is that iPhone Fold didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. Its story actually began years ago in 2021. Turns out that this Apple analyst called Ming-Chi Kuo had reported that Apple was actively developing a foldable. I don't know if you guys remember, but at the time, everyone expected this to launch much sooner than it did, and for years, the project, well, it went quiet afterwards. Well, at least publicly. Slowly with time, I remember reports from Ross Young, Mark Gurman, and Ming-Chi Kuo all pointed to the same conclusion. Apple hadn't canceled the project, they were just delaying it. Supply chain reports have consistently suggested that Apple delayed its foldable until it was satisfied with durability and display quality, which is very much an Apple move, with a major emphasis on reducing the visibility of the crease, which is one of the biggest engineering hurdles for foldable phones. But then in 2024, guys, the leaks became dramatically more specific. A 7.8-inch inner display, a 5.5-inch outer display, an almost invisible crease, an incredibly thin chassis, even Touch ID, replacing Face ID to save internal space. But there was one detail that stood above everything else: the shape. This wasn't another tall, narrow foldable like Samsung had spent years refining. Apple's device was consistently described as something much wider, almost passport-shaped, more like opening an iPad mini. It's like if an iPad mini and an iPhone Air had a kid. And so by 2025, that wider design was no longer just another rumor. It had become the consensus, because at the end of the day, what I've just described is very much what Samsung have done here. And so the real question isn't whether Samsung copied Apple. I think the real question is whether both companies arrived at the same destination independently, or whether the anticipation surrounding Apple's first foldable accelerated Samsung's decision to bring this new form factor to market first. And this is exactly what I wanted to explore within this Unpacked. Okay, so I know so very little about these phones, it's actually funny. Flip, the new Fold, right? Passport-like shape, and then the Fold Ultra, Fold8 Ultra, right? These are literally the three phones they brought me here for. From what I understand, the difference between the Fold8 and the Fold8 Ultra is not that big. So I think Samsung's just trying to make a statement, and they're trying to be like, hey, we released this shape before Apple. You guys have watched James Bond, right? Remember in Skyfall when Bond is introduced to the new MI6? Well, this is exactly how I felt here. Unpacked looked like the new MI6. Pre-Unpacked, sorry, because really, I was here to take a look at these phones for the very first time ever. And I mean it because I've been staying away from leaks. In fact, I had no idea the Z Fold 7 got replaced by what they now call the Z Fold 8 Ultra. Because the Z Fold 8 is now a passport-shaped like phone. Very confusing at first, but I really like it. We were told that Samsung's design team had spent like 7 years to get to this point. And when I saw this for the first time, I was like, damn, this is good. Plus they completely reworked the edges on both phones, which now makes it so easy to open them. But I still struggle with the fact that when it's laid down and you're maybe texting, the phone wobbles like crazy because of the camera bump. Not ideal because sometimes I use it like so, but hey. However, all around, the Z Fold 8 and 8 Ultra are practically the same. Compared to the Z Fold 7 though, Samsung didn't reinvent the phone at all. No, in fact, what they did is that they refined almost every major component: a 5000 milliamp hour battery, 45 watts of charging, a 50 megapixel ultra wide, an 8-inch OLED that now outputs 3000 nits of brightness, packed up in a now thinner 4.1 millimeter unfolded chassis and weighs the same. And you'd think, oh, well, Samsung took the 8 Ultra and made it chunkier and shorter to create the Fold 8. Nope. But for the most part, they kept the same screen and same processor. So from what I've been told, okay, apparently the reason as to why they went with this design like this is because they seem to think that this is the best screen, the best display for content consumption. Actually, let me try to find a video for you guys so I can properly show you. So here's more or less the difference. This is definitely cooler. Yeah, I will admit this aspect ratio is definitely better for content consumption. Listen, to achieve this, sure, they cut weight from 215 grams to 205 grams, but the battery is rated at 4800 milliamp hour and the camera system is totally different, with the main camera outputting pictures at 50 megapixels, no telephoto lens. However, they kept the 50 megapixel ultra wide. You'll see later on how incredible the raw photos and log video coming out of this phone really are. I was actually really impressed. And honestly, this is exactly why I'm hoping that Apple doesn't carry over the same philosophy from the iPhone Air to the rumored iPhone Fold. The iPhone Air really nuked their camera system in my opinion in the pursuit of being thinner and lighter. Samsung could have done the same here, but they didn't. Instead, they built a foldable without stripping away the features people actually care about, especially at this price point, because really, these phones are not cheap. Yeah. I very much enjoy coming to London whenever I can, especially during football season. It's not football season, it actually starts in August, but it's very nice, and it's been actually very nice here. The weather's been great. This is Tower Bridge. Looks pretty freaking awesome, like in the movies, like in Spider-Man. And then right here you've got the Shard. Eh? Nice. And here is pretty much where I was. That's where I was filming right now. It actually looked really cool, right? It looked freaking cool. Anyways, shout out to Grams28. I always use their bags when I travel. My bag's actually disgusting now. It's all dirty. But yeah, you guys are going in here because I gotta go eat and sleep. So I'm currently at the Samsung store, which looks pretty freaking cool. It's near King's Cross. I don't think I've ever been here, but anyways, we have a Samsung onboarding event going on. And I'll show you the store because it actually looks cool. These are the moments where a phone like this really comes into its own, because Fold 8 is all about being more efficient and trying to get the most out of your phone. Aside from the One UI setup I've built over the years, right? You can take things to the next level by using Cursor to organize pretty much everything for you. With me being in London for the Fold 8 launch, I thought of developing a simple way to organize all the content I want to shoot while I'm here. So I thought it could be awesome to test this with the new Grok 4.5 against Claude Opus 4.8. I gave both models the exact same prompt. Build me a simple launch day planner with my schedule, locations, shot lists for both phones, and a way to keep track of everything I've already filmed. First, I had them actually build the planner. Grok finished in about a little more than 3 minutes, while Claude took about 4 minutes. Then I gave them all my messy notes and asked them to organize the shoot, spot any timing problems, and group everything by location so I'm not running back and forth across London. And honestly, this is where things get pretty interesting. Grok got everything done faster and kept things very nice, while Claude took a little longer but was more thorough. However, Grok costs around $1.51 per task compared to $3.15 with Claude, so it's basically half the price. In terms of the final result, Grok looked more polished and refined, with Claude, well, being simpler and I guess straight to the point, almost like a starter template really. Grok 4.5 is also only $2 per million output tokens, so it's significantly cheaper than Claude Opus 4.8. And I want to be clear with the fact that Grok 4.5 and Cursor's Composer 2.5 are different model weight classes, so they're designed for different types of work. But overall, Grok 4.5 handled the coding, planning, and organization way better than I expected. So yeah, it's definitely much more than just a coding model. I think you should check it out in the link down below, where you can download Cursor and get 50% off your first month of Cursor. Safe to say that Apple and Samsung have totally different philosophies, especially when it comes to branding. Their stores look so different, their product presentations as well. Samsung is a lot more busy overall, and even their presentations and demos in store are totally a different thing. But here I was at the Samsung store in King's Cross. I had the opportunity to really be immersed in this new release where really I hadn't learned anything new because I had just come from a pre-briefing at MI6. No, I mean the building I showed you guys before, not MI6. But the really cool thing about this location is that I got to see the first ever fold Samsung created, the Samsung Galaxy Fold, announced in February 2019. This was the first time we had seen a foldable display within a Samsung phone. My God, does it look like a dinosaur compared to what we have going on now, right? I mean, think about it. We are at the point where true artists can now try to reproduce their workflows with these foldable cameras. In fact, David Gilliver is an award-winning Scottish artist and photographer known for his little people miniature macro photography, and he was able to reproduce some of his work with the help of the Z Fold. Extremely interesting. I think we got some really cool tips and tricks when it comes to macro photography with a foldable, and I was able to turn his little people into some anime. He actually found it really cool. That's like the actual store. It's actually freaking cool. You guys see that? I really like it, man. It's awesome. We're about to see if we can actually go to the Harry Potter's train station. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but all the guys are, so hey, why not? Yo, this was not like in the movie. This feels like a tourist trap. Actually, they even got me. My wife is like a big Harry Potter fan, so I got her a keychain and a fridge magnet. It's exclusive to the location, so hey, why not? Today we're back in this building. Welcome, guys. You know me, I always like showing you these experiences and just bring you along. And there's obviously a lot more people than the other day. I mean, holy.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to Galaxy Unpacked.
You guys remember my WWDC video? Y'all recall when I said people within the crowd for Apple events usually have iPhones, and for every other event as well? Yup, most people within this crowd mainly had iPhones. It was iPhone galore, including me, but really I have a good reason and you'll see why in a few episodes. But Unpacked was the official event where they announced these phones to the entire world. All of them which are supposedly available as of August 7th. Unpacked is all about product announcements, which is what went on for an hour or so, but the coolest part about Samsung is that they often make guest appearances. This time, we got to enjoy Jacob Batalon, who plays Ned in Spider-Man, and we also got to see Spider-Man himself. Yes, I'm sure that underneath that suit was Tom Holland. I absolutely enjoy these things, by the way, about Unpacked. I feel like Apple should be doing something similar. Plus, we always get our phone units right after the event. And this time, I think I filmed the most ghetto unboxing I've ever done on this channel. So my apologies, but trust me, there's nothing new within this box. You're not missing anything. And the reason for my speedy unboxing too was because, well, I kind of wanted to test these cameras. Because really, you won't believe it. I am happy to say that Fold 8 has a log video and raw photography available. Now, what does this mean? For those who don't know what I'm talking about, think of it like this. Instead of the phone making all the editing decisions for you, it gives you the original file with much more information. That means you can edit the colors, brightness, and details yourself, giving you a much better final result, just like on the S26 Ultra. Yes, the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 processor has really good post-processing, but I'm happy to say that unlike Apple with iPhone Air, Samsung did not nuke this phone. This here is capable of taking some of the best raw photos you've ever seen on a foldable. And it's got its limitations, I will say that, because for the most part, I wouldn't recommend shooting past 3x. 5x can definitely look funky or out of place because of the digital zoom, but shooting ultra wide, shooting wide at 1x, 2x, and even 3x, like I said, really works well for the most part. And editing these photos on Lightroom, whether it's on your phone or on your computer, because yes, you can use AirDrop now with One UI 9 to airdrop your photos to your MacBook and edit them within Lightroom Classic. But anyways, you can really achieve some really impressive stuff. The only time I say this really breaks is when you start zooming into these pictures, especially if you're not shooting at 50 megapixels, which is what I totally recommend doing at all times, really. I mean, even night photography is actually pretty darn impressive, and the grading you can achieve is immaculate in my opinion. The same thing I will say about shooting log. Samsung definitely reworked log with the S26 Ultra. We all know that. Before that, it was nice to have on the S25 Ultra, but now it almost feels like a professional filmmaking tool. You get 10-bit log recording, Samsung's new APV codec, CineLUT support built directly into the gallery app, and a workflow that's much closer to what you'd expect from a dedicated camera than a smartphone. The cool part is that Samsung, well, they didn't keep those features exclusive to the S26 Ultra. They brought that same log workflow to the Fold 8. Here's the important distinction though. The log itself is the same, but the cameras aren't, because the S26 Ultra has Samsung's best camera hardware, a larger main sensor, better zoom cameras, and overall stronger image quality, especially in low light and at long focal lengths. The Fold 8 uses this more modest camera system, so while we indeed still have the exact same log workflow and editing tools, the S26 Ultra will ultimately capture cleaner files with more detail and better dynamic range. However, the shots you can get out of this device are still pretty insane for what it is. And I'm extremely happy with the result here because overall, the Fold 8 really truly feels like a phone with an advanced camera system and not a nuked one. It's been a little over 24 hours that I've had this phone. Man, do I love this. I really enjoyed my plane ride with it yesterday, although I really hate the fact that Samsung phones don't have built-in MagSafe, I guess, on bare phones, right? It was like the number one thing I found last plane ride that I was really missing. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm really wondering though, Apple should be implementing MagSafe within their iPhone Fold because the iPhone Air has it. With my limited amount of time with this phone, okay, I noticed something really strange / interesting because the hinge is off, okay? It's kind of weird on this phone. Turns out that on the plane while I was watching Silo, which I heavily recommend by the way, I tried keeping the phone at around 90 degrees okay? Well, no matter how hard I tried to do this, the phone just kept like closing itself. Now, it might be my unit because one of the girls we were with was able to do her makeup with it, but I really can't seem to get this to sit like so. Aside from this, I would say the crease is very much not prominent, but the best way to evaluate this is after months of use, but I thought I should mention this really. And I would say the same thing about the battery, however, off rip, okay, the battery seems to be extremely promising. On the plane, I started watching Silo at around 1:48 p.m. with a battery life of like 71%, and by 7 p.m. my phone was at 48%. So I can only imagine how impressive battery life will be after it gets used to my workflow. For a phone with this much power, really, I think this is probably one of the most perfected folds we have to date. Listen, I'm not up to date with One UI 9, which I really want to talk about, but I can't because I don't know much about it yet, and I'm currently using an iPhone, right? However, I'm going to tell you my plan because my plan is actually very simple. I'm going to wait for the iPhone Fold to come out. I've always said it, if that phone is extremely good, I will be going back to iPhone, to iOS, definitely. And if it's not, I'm gonna compare those two phones, the iPhone Fold and I guess the Fold 8 together, and pretty much choose, because for me, One UI is definitely the best OS you can get on Android. That's just my personal preference, and it's going to be definitely a bit of a debate when it comes to iPhone Fold versus Fold 8.